and good morning. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, veterans, ladies and gentlemen. And I also wish to thank Mayor Lisa Wong, Mayor-elect Stephen DiNatale, members of the City Council, and Director of Veteran Services, Michelle Marino, for inviting me to be your keynote speaker today. It is an honor and a privilege to share with you some of my thoughts and reflections on Veterans Day. It's been 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War. On April 30th, 1975, and of the 58,220 veterans' deaths that have been attributed to this conflict. I recall back in 1963 through 1966, when I was still in high school, I would be listening to the morning news on the radio just before I walked into my high school. I would hear Walter Cronkite talk about the Vietnam War, some of the hard-fought battles, and of the ever-increasing number of U.S. casualties that ended in death. The deaths of young American soldiers touched many communities around the U.S. Just in my neighborhood in Chula Vista, two of my childhood friends, Mike Rambler and Richard Sykes, were among the many casualties of the war. In 1962, my brother was drafted into the U.S. Army and became an infantry paratrooper and was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. In 1964, he was selected to attend Officer Candidate School and became an infantry officer and military police officer. In 1966, my brother became an Army aviator and learned how to fly the L-19 Bird Dog and became a forward air observer. In September of 1967, I had joined the U.S. Army Security Agency, which is ASA, and was sent to Fort Ord, California for basic training. In October of 1967, my brother had received orders to signing him to Vietnam. My folks were driving my brother to San Francisco to catch his flight to Vietnam, and they were able to stop by Fort Ord to visit me. That was the last time I ever saw my brother. He was assigned to the 203rd Air Reconnaissance Company in Cam Ranh Bay, South Vietnam. After basic training, I was sent to Fort Devens on November 17th, 1967. It was knee-deep in snow. What a shock that was for a California kid. While awaiting for my top-secret security clearance to be approved, I was being trained as a Morse code intercept operator, MOS 05H. And during my training, I received an occasional letter from my brother, telling me about his flying adventures. In one of his letters, he told me about how he had his flight mechanic install 6 3.5 rocket launchers, the old bazookas, on 3 on each wing of that unarmed airplane. The L-19 is just an unarmed 2-seat fixed-wing aircraft, similar to a 2-seat Piper Cub. He said he had a lanyard tied to each one of the trigger mechanisms and then run the strings on the inside of his airplane so that as he would spot the enemy, he would pull these lanyards marking their location. He and his backseater or other observer, they also had to use 3 flak jackets, one to put on the floor of the airplane, one to sit on, and one to wear. Otherwise, they had no protection whatsoever. He also said that they also carried each a Thompson submachine gun as their only armament, besides the rocket launchers, which are primarily used for marking, smoke areas. Sometimes he'd also said he carried a box of fragmentary hand grenades, and he would just drop them out the window to harass the enemy. This airplane flies very close, treetop level. Very dangerous job. Then during the second week of April 1968, while I was in Morse code training class and trying to build up my speed in order to, or my ability to copy Morse code at 18 groups per minute, I was called into the front office, and I was very excited, as I thought I had passed the speed requirement. And I was told to report immediately to the company commander. When I reported as ordered, I was told to sit down. The CO told me that my brother, Captain Raymond O. Kincannon, was killed in action due to small arms fire in April 1st, 1968, in the Cam Ranh Bay area. His body was later recovered, and he was sent home in a sealed coffin. My brother was just 24 years old, and he'd only been in the country 6 months. Excuse me. As a result of my brother's death, I was declared the sole surviving son in my family, and therefore I was never sent to Vietnam. But my first overseas assignment, I was sent to Sinop, Turkey, up in the northeastern part of Turkey, right underneath the nose of the Soviet Union, where I was part of a collection, intelligence collection facility, eavesdropping on the Soviets' missile and space program. Later on, after a tour of duty at Fort Devens, I was also sent to Udon, Thailand, which is about 100 aeronautical miles from Hanoi. And I was assigned to a unit called the 7th Radio Research Field Station, where my unit was tasked with collecting signals intelligence against the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, and the Chinese communists operating within Southeast Asia. During my tour of duty at the 7th Radio Research Field Station, I met a communications security or ComSec specialist who had told me that when he was stationed at Cam Ranh Bay, he said he remembered hearing my brother's Mayday distress call, that he was hit and was going down. So when I often think, knowing my brother, and when I often think about him and reflect on what happened to my brother and how he died, I like to think of that as he was wounded and his plane was going down in flames, that he was blazing away with his submachine gun at the enemy. Excuse me. I'm sure that each one of us has lost a friend, a family member, or has suffered an injury in a military conflict. And each has a meaningful story to tell. 50 years is still a relatively short period of time since the end of the Vietnam War on April 30th, 1975. In closing, I wish to leave you with this sagacious quote by Nicholas Nicholson. They say the passage of time will heal all wounds, but the greater loss, the deeper the cut, and the more difficult the process to become whole again. The pain may fade, but the scars serve as a reminder of our suffering and make the bearer all the more resolved never to be wounded again. So as the time moves along, we get lost in the distractions, act out in frustration, react with aggression, give in to anger, and all the while we plot and plan as we wait to gain or to grow stronger. And before we know it, the time passes. We are healed. We are ready to begin anew. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless you.